Welcome along, one and all, to round 4 of PSGL Season 39 PSF3, brought to you by GT Omega. We are approaching the halfway point of this season. So much drama already in the books. Of course, a last race in Belgium, which produced late twists and a heartbreak at the checkered flag, but no shortage of action, and hopefully that's what we'll be treated to once again tonight, as we are here for the 4th round of the championship at China. Shanghai International Circuit is the venue for this 4th round, so the Chinese Grand Prix is what we will be treated to tonight. So to take you through the action here tonight, it is your usual PSF3 lineups of myself, Zaka, and alongside me, as always, it is Ghost, my good friend. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, I'm doing well. You really threw me for a loop by saying we're nearly halfway through the season. I know it's a short season, but even so, it's a bit of a... Oh gosh, we are, aren't we? But yes, no, exciting times. It's looking like an exciting championship so far. We've certainly had some unpredictable races, which is always great to commentate on. And we're about to see how this will unfold here in China. I love this circuit, Dakar. I don't know about you. I know it's a bit of a Marmite circuit, this one. A lot of people really hate it. But I'm a big fan of this track. I think it produces some really, really good races almost all of the time. I'm sure it will today. And I love driving on it too. So I'm excited for this one.
I hate this track.
There we go. There's your proof.
But I believe on this game and with this grid, any track is capable of producing a great race. So I can't wait to see what these guys have in store for us tonight. EVE PLX is the first driver to come over the line, get this qualifying set off. Let's get on board with the Frenchman. Let's see what the Shanghai circuit's all about.
Yeah, through he goes, that long, never-ending right-hander of turns 1 and 2, leading on to 3 and 4. Big oversteer moment for PLX on the exit of turn 4 there, heading down towards turn 6. It's a heavy braking zone, easy to lock up, but PLX gets that spot on, hitting that apex very nicely. And now through the full speed turn 7, and then there'll be a little lift for turn 8, but I don't think much of one. Yeah, there you go, there's the lift, and now through the double left, very tricky corner, turn 9, this one here, and turn 10, it's hard to get the power down as well at the right time without spinning it. Now to turn 11, another heavy braking zone, a little bit of a lockup from PLX, but hits the apex nonetheless. Through turn 13, really tough corner to get the power down. Easier on this year's game, I will say, than previous iterations, but still, it can be a challenge, especially on worn tyres. And then DRS open all the way down to turn 14. We'll get plenty of overtakes at this hairpin and before it in the race, as PLX brakes just after the 100-metre board. Very late braking, nicely done from the F4 champion. And to the final corner he goes. Another tough corner, easy to invalidate on the exit, but PLX gets it spot on to the line, a 1:30.0, as others coming across now. Sam Van Marising a tenth and a half behind. Spyros beats him by 300ths of a second. Nico, P2 in the championship, goes only P4, and plenty of others coming through, including championship leader Zinedine Hajjaj.
Coming around towards the end of the track, that hard braking zone down into the hairpin takes a lot less of the curb compared to PLX. Now gearing up for that final corner, as you said very rightly, so easy to invalidate, going right over that inside curb, hopping over it, coming up to the line, and it's a fraction ahead of Spyros, a 1:30 flat in the book. So Zinedine Hajjaj, who of course has, well, been thwarted in each of the last 2 rounds through late race errors, looking to get back on track here, and up there at the top of the timesheets for the moment, but very, very close. I was thoroughly impressed by PLX's banker lap, and I was surprised to see it beaten by 2 drivers, to be completely honest. Spyros, though, clearly on song at this track. Zinedine Hajjaj has been dominant, relatively speaking, over 1 lap. If he's not on pole, he's very close to it, with the exception of that very chaotic mixed conditions qualifying session in Spa. But late race errors, as I said, have kept this very close at the front of the championship. So still very much wide open at this stage, and still very much wide open in this session. 13 minutes to go as we have a bit of a lull after the most of the opening runs coming in, but very tight at the top. as you'd come to expect, really, from this division. But I think Spyros really the big surprise, getting it right up there into the mix, and one to look out for sure. He's on good form as well. So Zinedine on top, but only just for the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, very close. And well, we had that oversteer moment for PLX on the exit of turn 4 in his lap, so I'm sure he's got more time in the bank. I'm sure Hajjaj and Spyros do as well, as AMS Devil coming through the first sector. Another moment through turn 4. So hard to get the power down on the exit of that corner. It can be really, really tricky without losing the rear like that. 23.8 in Sector 1 for the McLaren driver as he heads through the middle sector now. We've also got Mattia Manga back on the grid, which is great to see after his absence last week, so we'll see how he does. Remember, he's been on the up as of recently in PSGL. Towards the end of last season, he was very, very impressive. And he started this season off fairly well, not as well as he would have hoped for, but fairly well nonetheless. AMS Devil into the final sector, meanwhile, wide of the apex there at turn 11, and very, very wide through turn 13. I think that's lap abandon, it is indeed, for the McLaren driver, so we'll go to Mattia Manga instead, who's heading through turn 1. But yeah, Zinedine Hajjaj once again at the top, and a notable absence today, Daka, is AGK Racing, the man who's usually fighting with Hajjaj for pole position, but today not here. So Zinedine Hajjaj may have been coming into this with the expectation of securing pole position, but clearly Spyros and PLX could make that job harder than he might have thought, certainly than I might have thought.
Three drivers, Mattia Manga heading around that middle sector. A driver who I believe will have been rather disappointed with how the opening rounds would have gone. But nevertheless, on a good run, you see really using that rear locking. I think it was a bit more unstable on the entry than he would have liked heading in to turn 11 then. And on that tight traction zone, you can see him keeping a very narrow line through the middle of that corner, opening up that DRS now down the straight, and you get up to awesome speeds here. This straight well over 1 kilometre long, and then you spot that braking zone there just after the start of the curve, shifting down into third gear. Again, using the rear of the car to rotate the corner around the entry of the corner, now heading down towards that final corner, flicking it in over the curb, straightening up, and away you go. And the Italian comes up towards the lane and goes again just a fraction faster at the top of the timesheets, but only just ahead of Zinedine Hajjaj. But that's a strong lap from Mattia Manga, a driver who, as Ghost said earlier on, a driver who has done nothing but improve since he came in to PSF3 and goes to the top. But well, these four drivers are somewhat in a league of their own, but I'm just watching PLX and he has done an absolutely mighty first sector, so I think a driver we've got to keep an eye on as well, right in the mix in that battle for pole. And yeah, those four drivers really setting themselves apart at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, although PLX had a little moment there as he headed through turn 8 and down towards 9. So I wonder if that'll cost him time. We'll see at the sector time. Nope, there we go. He's still up, well up on his previous best. This is looking very, very strong from EVE PLX. Obviously, he managed to not make the same mistake he did at turn 4 on the previous lap. And down he comes towards the hairpin as just a couple of corners to go for the Aston Martin driver to secure this excellent lap time. Down the gears he goes, hits that apex nicely and gets on the power on the exit. Very nice, no oversteer at all through the final corner. Just don't invalidate through here and he should be fine. Oh, it's very, very close, but he gets across the line, the first to get in the 29s, and by some distance, a 29.6 from the F4 champion. That is going to take some beating, Daka, but there's plenty of others on laps.
That's a miraculous lap time. How on earth is anyone going to stand up to that? We shall see Spyros up to the line. It goes faster than his previous run, but not by nearly enough. A 29.6 is beyond belief in F3. That's absolutely unbelievable from EVE PLX, showing his class up here now in PSF3. Geppo comes over the line, goes to 5th. Nico is behind, then replaces him in that 5th spot, just goes a fraction behind Zinedine Hajjaj, who's also tracking well to the first two sectors. NASCAR goes to 11th in the Alpine. The other Alpine of Felix 1 is now navigating that final corner up towards the line. 1:30.7 remains down there in 13th for the moment. Let's see about Zinedine Hajjaj, though, coming around that final corner now, flicking it in, taking a lot of apex speed, a little bit of oversteer on the exit. He comes through 1:29.7. Game on, but EVE PLX, that is a storming time, by the way. Would be good for second on the PSF2 grid tonight, so that speaks volumes as to what the PSF4 champion has pulled off then, and even for the might of the rest of this grid, that is a phenomenal lap, and one that's going to leave, I think, a lot of drivers scratching their heads.
Yeah, that's a monstrous lap time from PLX. Zinedine Hajjaj's time wasn't bad at all. That is an excellent lap time as well, but it's still over a tenth down on the Aston Martin. And yeah, like you said, Daka, that's going to take some beating. His teammate, meanwhile, Lars van der Linden into the pits. No improvement for him as other drivers coming through. I believe the other house of Gippos heading into the pits, but I think NASCAR in the Alpine is on a lap right now. He's heading through, but he's not get any fuel, so actually he's going to come into the pits as well. So not many people on laps right now. Vettel still yet to set a lap in that McLaren. Both McLarens actually really yet to set a competitive lap time, so work to do for them. But yeah, I think Zinedine Hajjaj will have done that lap thinking, wow, yeah, that was a good lap. And then he sees how far he is away from pole position. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Daka. I think there's going to be some scratching of heads going on there. How has PLX pulled that one out? I want to know whether, you know, as you always want to know with these kinds of lap times, I want to know whether he was expecting to go that fast tonight, or whether he has just pulled off one of the laps of his league racing career. I'd love to ask him, but yeah.
I disagree when you say that Zinedine Hajjaj would have been happy with that lap, because as far as I know, none of these top drivers are ever happy with a lap they do.
That's very true.
But we'll leave that there. Mattia Manga has just started a run now out on the track, so we'll see how the Red Bull driver, of course, following him once again. Just behind him is Devil, of course. Devil, who was giving me flashbacks to some of my races at Shanghai with some of the snaps of oversteer that he had on that lap before, trying to go better, and has got a pretty good pacemaker in front, you must be said. Of course, Mattia Manga right up there in this session, was on provisional pole before the rest of these second runs came in. By the way, we're already down to 5 minutes left in the session. It's come extraordinarily quickly, I feel. Yeah, so these drivers, some of them are going to start to feel increasingly pressured. And some of these guys, I imagine, would have had the expectation of getting into the 29s. And, well, that's looking like a fairly solid lap time to put you right in the mix. Mattia Manga, though, who's just outside of the 29s, is slightly down, but only just through the first couple of sectors now, burning along. Devil, of course, following him through. And, of course, there's no slipstreaming in this qualifying session. That is not allowed thanks to the collisions being turned off in this session in terms of the settings. So it does mean that MS Devil was only got Mattia Manga as a guide rather than a physical help. But we'll see how he gets on, finally getting a competitive lap in, it seems. But Mattia Manga, has he managed to find more time in the last sector? No, understeers, sorry, off the circuit at the last corner. It was a strong lap, a 29.8. But not enough in the end, and just coming undone. So, but we've mentioned as well with that final corner, so easy to run off the circuit. As Sam Van Marising with a good lap goes to third position in the session. But yeah, I think as these guys start to push the boundaries, this track isn't really a tricky one for track limits in general, but that last corner is very, very punishing.
Yeah, you know, I think it's really one of the only ones you can get track limits around here. It's not a very punishing circuit for those white lines much of the time, but you still do see those penalties, and it's mostly at those last two corners, the hairpin and of course that last turn 16 at the end. But yeah, Mattia Manga will be disappointed with that. He was 2 tenths up as well, and he's going to be right on the limit for getting a lap in before the end as well. He should be able to make it, but he's going to have to get in the pits and change his tyres very quickly. But yeah, he'll know that he can find the time now. He knows that he can at least get himself onto that second row, but whether he can find any more than that. We saw he was down in the first two sectors, so maybe there's more to come from the Italian in the Red Bull, but for now has to settle for 5th place as others come out the pits ready for their final runs. Mattia Manga comes in just to get those new tyres on and get out quickly. He should be fine. 2.5 minutes to go. There's just about enough time. But yeah, it's a fairly medium-length circuit, this one, in terms of the time. So there's no real resting on your laurels anyway, even if you get out straight away at the start of the session.
No, indeed, you do have to get yourself moving out there, but just over 2 minutes to go in the session. I imagine it's going to be a very busy track out there. One driver got the final run out the way very early. That was Spyros, and did improve. Goes to P3, had a really strong session up to this point, and only 100th of a second, give or take, behind Zinedine Hajjaj. So really impressive stuff from the Kick Sauber driver. Further along, getting onto these final runs, Lars van der Linden is headed out on track, but he has invalidated that one. Has he fueled enough to get one more in? He will have older tyres on that Aston Martin, but yeah, not the start to this last run on track that he would have been looking for. Geppo will be the next driver to come across, so just under 2 minutes to go in the session. EVE PLX with quite frankly miraculous time of a 129.6. We'll see if anyone though can stand up to it. This is what this grid's all about. 14 other drivers will be snacking up towards that time of PLX, and Geppo will get it kicked off. Ghost, we've got a 90 seconds to remember ahead of us.
We absolutely do. Mattia Manga's out on an outlap, so he should get round just in time, but it will be close as Gippo heads through the first few corners of this circuit. I'm noticing a lot of difference in terms of how the drivers are using their ERS around this circuit. There's some drivers who are using absolutely nothing in the first sector, and then burning everything on the run down to the hairpin in the final sector. And then there's other drivers who are using some in the first sector, and then they have to back off a little bit towards the end of that long back straight. So yeah, interesting differences in ERS there between the drivers, but overall it shouldn't make too much of a difference as long as they use everything they've got. But Gippo coming to the end of Sector 2, he is half a tenth up in his Haas, looking to get himself further up the grid, but he's going to need more than that. He's 2 tenths down nearly on Nico's time immediately ahead of him, so this might just be a lap to secure his current position unless he can find a crazy amount of time in this final sector. Spyros retires, but that's in the pit lane, so no further part from the Kick Sauber driver as Gippo comes to the hairpin. What can he do through here? Gets on the brakes, but I think a little wide of the apex. He won't have been too happy with that corner. Final corner for Gippo. Don't invalidate on the exit. Oh my goodness me, I don't know how he stayed on track, but he gets across. It's a 10th.5 improvement, so he stays P7, but his position is more secure at the moment.
Yeah, only 200s behind Nico. I was keeping an eye on Sam Van Marsing and whether he would make it over the line. He hasn't quite managed it, so he will stay in 4th place watching Zinedine, but he's overshot the hairpin massively. He was already down on his lap. So that looks like PLX's chances of pole position have just skyrocketed now. He's down on his lap by just over a 10th of a second, but I don't know if anyone's got the raw speed to challenge a time quite like that. Ruben in the Ferrari heading up towards that final corner, flicking it in aggressively, then getting oversteer on the exit, manages to bring it under control. He stays 9th, no improvement behind Aston Martin. That's Hove, and Lars van der Linden goes into 8th position of a 130.2, finds a quarter of a second on track. Behind that is going to be FRT NASCAR and replaces Lars van der Linden in that 8th place. Goes onto the 4th row for the time being. He will stay there for the moment as Vessel can't quite go above him. He's just 1,000th of a second behind Lars van der Linden. PLX has done too, no improvement, so we're looking to others, but I'm not sure if anyone else is going to be able to step up to the plate. Matthias with a good solid lap late gets into 5th place after a tough session up to this point, but managing to find it late in the day. Nico and Mattia Manga will be the last cars to cross the line. So first up is Nico. Let's see what the Belgian driver can do. Goes into 5th, and Mattia Manga, well, that says a lot about how that lap went for him, but a good late lap from Nico. In the end, of course, the race winner from the last round in Belgium in his home race, and second in the standings now, gets a good lap to go into 5th. But yeah, PLX, I mean, he himself couldn't improve on that final one. I think that was for the standards of these drivers a reasonable lap. I think that's how be his assessment of it, but he goes fastest. But yeah, that was an awesome qualifying performance.
Yeah, I think that might be one of the laps that they don't say that was a terrible lap for once. But yeah, that is pole position for PLX. Absolutely sensational. Ahead of Zinedine Hadjaj with Spyros only 15 thousandths behind the Frenchman. Then it's Sam van Marising, Nico, Mathieusz, Sam and Mathieusz, very impressive laps at the end, pressure laps from them. Mattia Manga down in P7, he'll be disappointed. He will know that he could have been on that second row but for that final corner where he invalidated on his second run. And then the third run, well, we saw, did not quite go to plan. But still plenty of time for things to change. We've got a long race ahead of us. And also mentioned to Vessel as well, having no lap over the course of the whole session, invalidating both of your first two efforts is really tricky. There's a lot of pressure for the third lap. It's tricky to get a good lap in because you don't have a delta to compare with. So he's done very well to get himself into the top 10 as well.
Yes, indeed. Actually, I'll just run you through the rest of the grid. So from Mattia Manga in 7th, Geppo, NASCAR, and Lars van der Linden actually round out the top 10. Vessel just 1,000th outside of it in 11th. So yeah, virtually in the top 10, but not quite managing it. Next up was Philly, the pole setter, of course, from the last round in Spa. Of course, a completely dry session, not quite going the way of the runner-up from PSF4 last season. After that is Ruben Devil, who managed to get competitive laps in at the end of it after a tricky start, but only 14th, and then NLR Felix won. And really not a driver who doesn't specialise in one-lap pace, it must be said. The German driver comes through in 15th and last position on the grid. So that is the tail of the tape, really, ahead of the Grand Prix, which will, of course, be coming shortly in front of us. And well, what is the nature of racing here at China? It's again, as I said earlier, it's not a track I particularly enjoy. It's one where the tyres do tend to be quite stressed over the course of the race, and that's very valued as a skill around this track, looking after those tyres. We'll see how that tends to evolve, because this track is, I would say, fairly unique in its characteristics, in that there's really all the racing, and maybe this isn't that unique really, but all the racing tends to happen on one kind of isolated part of the track, that huge DRS zone down the back straight towards the hairpin at the end of it. That could be maybe what we are looking for in terms of the action, but well, who knows? How do you race around here? How exactly do the cars go at each other in close quarters at this track?
I think there'll definitely be some moves down at turn 1 and 2 as well. There'll be sort of, once someone makes an overtake at the hairpin, there'll be afters down towards turn 1 a few times, I'm sure. But there's also turn 6 can be a good overtaking spot. I'm sure we'll see some dive bombs down the inside into turn 6 today. Turn 11 may be a harsh braking zone, but it's not really an overtaking spot because of the way the corner is. It's just too sharp, really, and there's not enough track on the exit. But I have seen plenty of times drivers send it to the inside of turn 6 and then they end up side by side all the way through turn 7, 8, 9 and 10, and then someone has to make a decision at turn 11. So I do hope we'll see something like that today. And honestly, with this grid, I'm sure we will. There's going to be plenty of aggressive moves being made. We've seen that this season already. We've seen that, last season we had a lot of drivers who were willing to play the long game, as it were. There wasn't too much action in a first stint, and then the second stint things really got interesting. But this grid, I mean, there's plenty of drivers here who are not willing to do that, who are willing to go for those audacious moves in the first stint and really take the challenge to their rivals. So I do think we'll get plenty of action here today. You're right that a lot of the moves happen just with a simple DRS pass to the hairpin, but there can be plenty of other ways to make moves on this circuit. And I'm sure we'll at least once this race see a 3 wide moment into the hairpin, which is going to be great.
You're absolutely right in the nature of this grid. That's something that we picked up on even in the first race. Everyone was just going at it, and oftentimes maybe not making the best decisions in terms of their race situation. By going for moves in awkward places, ending up slowing each other down and losing out from the DRS train, which often defines league racing on the Cody's F1 games. So, yeah, that's a very good point, and I think we may be seeing drivers absolutely going at it with each other, taking big risks and trying to win big rewards on the track. But that's to come later on. We should be bringing you that action from the 28 laps of the Shanghai International Circuit very, very shortly. But while we have a bit of downtime, a quick word for our sponsor, GT Omega, as of course a link to their site is in the video description down below. And if you have a notion to purchase anything from their site, you can use the code PSGL at the checkout for a 5% discount. Now, Ghost, talking about the tyre strategy here, this one typically I think tends to be a hard tyre start. You can go for the mediums, and pit stops tend to be around mid-distance here, so you will see fairly even stints. And just wonder if anyone, because we talk about before these races, there's often a set strategy that tends to be the norm, which is that hard to medium. I wonder if anyone's going to offset that. Of course, we've seen some drivers like AGK going off strategy, trying to gain an advantage in this early lap. Is this really? Do you think you'll see drivers typically going one way, as we've usually come to expect, I guess, from this grid?
I think so, honestly. I don't think there's going to be too much strategy difference around here, because I think the medium hard strat is in theory considerably worse than the hard medium strat, because I think like you said, because the pit stop window is sort of midway through the race anyway, so it's usually better to be on the faster tire at the end. But who knows, someone could go for it and try a medium stint at the start, try and get ahead. I've definitely seen it work. And it depends on the pace of the drivers as well. So if someone like Zinedine Hajjaj, for example, went for the mediums to start off with and went to the hards,
scratch that.
Well, never mind. Never mind. Ignore everything that I just said. It is chucking it down in Shanghai. And, well, I think that looks like interweather to me, Daka.
Yes,
but yeah, this is going to be definitely an interesting one. We've had rain already this season, and it's like we said the last time we had rain. It's difficult for drivers to adapt when qualifying and the race weather is so different. And well, that is definitely going to be the case here. So looking forward to this. This is going to be a fascinating first half of the race. I do wonder, I'm sure it's probably, if the rain stays the whole way, that is, I'm sure it's probably going to be a one stop. But I've seen drivers go for a zero stop in these conditions before, if it stays with the same amount of rain. I don't know if that's as viable on this game as in previous titles, but keep an eye out. If someone stays out for longer than we expect, then they might just be going for it.
This is going to prove to be a real shock to the system, of course. In leagues where we go straight from qualifying to the Grand Prix, they'll have seen this weather in advance, but this will be completely new, and of course, they're going to have to try and adapt on the fly, maybe make some setup changes. They don't have to compromise, of course, because, well, there's no qualifying session to worry about now, so they can run the best setup they can. Of course, we don't know how the weather's going to evolve throughout the race, how quick it can change around here. Of course, there's virtually no blue in the sky. That's complete cloud cover. We'll see if it's going to stay that way, if the rain will ease off, if it'll even intensify. I tell you what, I love a changeable conditions race, and on this game, timing that switch to slicks is so hard, but we'll see what this race has in stores. We have 5 lights. And they leave the grid. It's Shanghai with PLX leading away and getting great traction off the line. He's dropping everyone towards turn 1. Zinedine was slow off the line. Has Spyros up around the outside trying to find a way through the kicks over. And Sam with an opportunistic look to the inside of turn 2. Side by side now with the championship leader in a turn 3. But Zinedine holds fast, holds firm and keeps a hold of that P2. But their cars are gearing up behind. What a launch off the line that was from PLX. He's cleared away at the start and has clear vision too, ahead of the rest of the field as they head into turn 6 in the second sector. They're nearly 3 wide down there near the back of the field as Feely tries to force a move. We know he likes these conditions. He gets to the inside of a NASCAR heading out of turn 6 and a turn 7, gets through eventually in the end. Nico and Mattia Manga are fighting it out. The V-Corp tries to hold it round the outside. There's slight contact between them as Mattia Manga tries to hold it round the outside of a turn 8 but not quite able to manage it. They're still going at it at the back of the field as NASCAR gets forced a little offline by Lars van der Linden and the two McLarens going side by side in the background. Ruben with a big snap of oversteer at the back of the field. He's fighting it out with Felix on the outside as they barrel into turn 11. So many cars in such a small amount of track. How on earth could this end? Ruben is caught at the back eventually. Felix and Vessel now side by side. I know it's for the later positions, but it's a fierce fight going on up there. Further up the grid, Mattia Manga still trying to pressure Nico and Mathieu's trying to defend from the pair of them. He's going to come under pressure though. Nico gets to the inside line. The race winner in Belgium draws a level with the runner-up from Bahrain, who's going to get squeezed onto the curb. Can he hold it out there? Can Mathieu? He looks like he's going to drop back. Mattia Manga is going to try and take full advantage as well. Round the outside, but straight off the circuit at the final corner. He's going to have to try and tuck into line. A manic first lap here in Shanghai goes PLX. That was an awesome run off the lane, but Zinedine Hajjaj getting into the rhythm and beginning to claw that Aston Martin back.
Wow, what an action-packed start to this race. He had action up and down the grid, Daka, all the way through as Ruben makes a move on Vessel for P13, and Vessel losing another position perhaps to Felix as well. But that is one of the most dominant starts in the wet I've ever seen from PLX, from any driver. He just launched off the line. It was like he had some extra grip than everyone else, and wow, straight to turn 1. He was already an 8/10 gap, but Zinedine Hajjaj getting used to the conditions, sticking with him for now. Sam Van Marissing, after that attempted move on lap 1 as well, just about sticking with them. Obviously no DRS in these conditions, so there's no equalizer like that keeps everyone close together, so we could have splits in the grid earlier than we would usually in the dry, but at the moment everyone's sticking very close together and keeping very close in pace as well. But PLX is so fast through that long right-hander. He just seems to have that little edge in terms of grip than everyone else behind him. We saw it at his getaway, and we're seeing it through those corners which require the most grip as well. He's got a decent amount of ERS to play with as Nico's on the inside of Spyros. He gets it done even before the braking zone. Impressive straight line speed from the VCARB driver as Mathieusz follows through, and Mattia Manga as well. Not actually that much movement through the grid, even with all that chaos on lap 1. Devil up 4 positions though, and Philly up 3. Like you said, he loves these conditions. We saw that in Brazil. But Sam Van Marissing and Nico up 1 at the expense of Spyros, who started in 3rd. But pretty much everyone else as they were. NASCAR and Vessel with the worst starts as Vessel comes into the pits, presumably damage to the McLaren.
Yes, indeed. I can only imagine yet that's a front wing going onto the McLaren. So very, very disappointing start for the Dutchman. He's got a long way to go now in this race if he wants to get any kind of results. I'm going to keep an eye on Sam Van Marissing here because in the opening stint at Brazil in these conditions, he was also running in 3rd place but got dropped fairly handsomely by AGK and Zinedine and had to fend off the cars behind throughout that first stint. This time he looks a lot better off and is actually keeping Zinedine Hajjaj very honest there in positions 2 and 3. So he looks much more comfortable and confident in the wet so far. In fact, the entire grid driving to a very high standard. And as you said, not many gaps opening up. But PLX, that constant mechanical grip edge, as you said, that he seems to have over the rest of the field is really putting everyone else, including the championship leader Zinedine Hajjaj, under pressure here. And Sam Van Marissing actually looking pretty menacing in position 3 as they head in. Oh, Zinedine with a big snap of oversteer too, heading off of that second snail curve, and I think Sam van Marsing is on that overtake button. He's looking for a way through, threads the eye of the needle to the inside towards the hairpin, and Sam van Marsing is going to get this one done. I think he's clear of Zinedine, who breaks much later and gets forced out right to the edge of the track, just barely able to keep it off the grass. But Sam van Marsing goes through. He is taking to this water like a duck to water, as I'm so sorry, everyone. But he gets through into
Here
second
comes Nico.
place. Nico as well, trying to compound the misery of Zinedine Hajjaj, and it's the two V-Carbs slicing their way up the order. Both of them now up 2 places at the expense of the championship leader, who appears to be struggling early on. But yeah, these V-Carbs really on the move. Sam van Marsing and Nico really getting into a good rhythm. The question is, though, now, how does their pace compare to the race leader, the PSF4 champion up front? 1.3 seconds from Sam to PLX. Let's keep an eye on it. Let's see how this evolves.
Yeah, top 2 in the championship going to battle, which you always love to see. And this time it's Nico who gets ahead. And yeah, Zinedine Hajjaj really does seem to be struggling in these conditions on this circuit at the moment. He doesn't seem happy in that car. It's certainly losing time to the V-Carbs. He's absolutely losing plenty of time to PLX. And he's brought everyone behind back into this as well. A gap just had opened up, but it's come back down under a second now. Spyros, though, has a little moment there through turn 10, but nothing that Mateusz can really take advantage of at this stage. Philly sticking with them as well after his fantastic start. He's right behind Gippo, and looking for his teammate as well, Mattia Manga, just ahead, who's not made any progress so far. AMS Devil 1.3 behind, but he's beginning to gap Lars van der Linden and the others behind him. So a great start for him. He seems at home in these conditions, as well as Mateusz to the inside of Spyros. That's another move done before the braking zone as the two V-Carbs make contact through the hairpin on the exit. I don't think there was any damage, but Nico up to P2, and that's important in terms of championship points as he chases after Zinedine Hajjaj's total and sets the fastest lap as a result. But here comes Sam van Marsing back at him. Neither of them have got any ERS left, but it doesn't matter. Sam van Marsing, very impressive straight line speed. Nico looking to the inside of turn 2. You might get plenty of those moves today as well. People sending it to the inside of turn 2, but not this time, as Philly making more moves further down, looking to the outside of Gippo on the exit of turn 3 and 4, but he can't quite get it done. And now Spyros could leave him in the dust, but just about stays behind, and Philly keeps that position. But that Red Bull is really looking racy at the moment.
And the two V-Carbs are still battling. There's no team orders here in this fight. Nico reclaiming the possession there to the inside of turn 6. But these guys are absolutely going at it. It is the ultimate favour to EVE PLX, who now leads this race by the tune of more than 2 seconds, 2.2 now to Nico. But yeah, these guys are not backing down from a fight with each other, that's for sure, as they continue to move along. I do think the rain is easing, but we'll keep an eye on that if it is going to transition onto slicks later on. It's still, of course, far from that, and timing that switch to slicks so hard is further back in the field. NLR Felix, he's had such a difficult evening gathering the car back up, but he's already cut well adrift of the field, and so far proving to be a night to forget for the Alpine driver as they head down the straight for the 5th time of 28 in this Chinese Grand Prix. Things calmer at the front now as Lars van der Linden tries to line up Devil. They almost touch in the braking zone. Lars van der Linden forced onto that very tight line. Devil's going to get forced out wide though onto the curb. Good traction and 3 wide almost there with NASCAR and the Alpine looking in behind. Lars sensibly yields on the entry to that final corner. He may try and get the run. These guys all so low on TRS, or on ERS, sorry. It's very difficult to run out of battery in the wet, but these guys are still doing so. Such as the intensity that they're going at it. Ruben is trying to force a move, as you brought up, into turn 2. Sends it late on Lars. A little bit of contact between them, but nothing really coming of it. He looks for another inside move, trying to take a tighter line in the traction zone. Lars seeing him off for the time being as they head up towards turn 6. He's got to be wary of NASCAR 2. Covered off by Lars van der Linden. This time Ruben gets onto the grass on the entry, and the car goes around. The Ferrari manages to stop it from going completely backwards, but that is very costly. He loses out to NASCAR. NASCAR trying to get through on Lars, and a very unusual point of the track at turn 7. Backs out of it in the end. These guys are really going at it, but the separation occurring between all these guys. Devil is all over the road in front of them, and is that damage to NASCAR and the Alpine? Did he run to the back of Lars? That is. I thought, my God, Devil goes off the circuit into the wall and out of the race. My goodness, what on earth is happening? Better disappointment for Devil. A safety car is brought out. The rain is definitely easing out there now. But is it too early? It must be at this point. But yeah, Ghost, I'm going to hand over to you because the action has just been non-stop. We finally get a low, though, with the safety car.
We do indeed. Wow. I mean, this is a kind of poorly timed safety car for the drivers, really, because they've got they're forced to make decisions now as a result. Because if the rain is easing, if we are going to slicks later on, do they go for the slicks now, or is it worth waiting? I'm not sure. PLX is coming into the pits, though. Nico follows him, as does Sam Van Marising. Sam Van Marising is actually going to lose out to Zinedine Hadjaj and I think Mateusz in the pits, thanks to the double stack. So not good news for him, but yeah, I reckon they're all going to be onto slicks. It does look like the rain is stopping, so I'm just going to look at their tyres. Here comes PLX. No, Inters. Wow, interesting. I wonder if anyone's going to try the slicks, though. Yes, they are. Nico onto hards. PLX onto Inters. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Sam Van Marising onto the medium tyres, presumably to the end, but... Or maybe there's more rain coming. Zinedine Hadjaj, Mateusz as well onto the Inters. So 3 cars on the Inters and everyone else on slicks. What a brilliant restart we are in store for. Those on the Inters are going to have to hope that safety car comes in as soon as possible. But the rain has stopped. I will say I can't see any more raindrops. But as we know on this game this year, it takes a long time for the track to get good enough for slicks after the rain stops. So that's what those who've stayed on the Inters are banking on. But everyone else onto the slicks, Felix and Vessel at the back, who've been handed a lifeline by the safety car, also onto those slick tyres. So this could be a huge mistake. And remember, we've seen Zinedine Hadjaj make very poor mistakes in changeable conditions before this season. We saw him do it in Brazil, and he got bailed out by a safety car then. But this time, I think this safety car could doom him. If they have to pit again for the slicks, they are going to be right to the back and dozens of seconds behind the rest of the pack.
Of course, the real dilemma that these guys are going to have to go through. The Inters will, at this point, even though the track essentially looks bone dry, as Ghost very rightly said, it takes a very long time for that to really come to fruition on the track. So the question is, can you make up that pit stop gap? I'm not sure that at this moment. I would lean towards the slick runners being able to maintain that gap. Before if that crossover eventually ends up happening. We will get at least one more lap behind the safety car. Of course, we may get some sandbagging shenanigans, I wonder, from drivers further back who want to try and delay this, like so Felix and Vessel, to further compound the misery of the Inter-runners. Yeah, PLX is going to come in. They know the mistake. They've seen the mistake. In comes Zinedine Hadjaj, and I imagine Mateusz as well. So yes, it was undeniable in the end, as these guys maybe, well, no, they wouldn't have been trying to get fresher tyres, because that's a lot of track possession lost, but the rain just came to a halt, and they must have known, we're not getting that pit stop back. We have to come in. They're going to get saved because a number of drivers have also decided to follow in from the back of the field to get fresher tyres on. Lars has gone back over to Inters, which is bizarre to me, as has Gippo. So what on earth is going on here? These are peculiar strategy calls to my eyes. Coming back in for the Inters, maybe they felt how bad the slicks were. Of course, the tyre temperatures would have been through the floor, essentially, and they would have had almost no grip, but wow, that's bold to switch back onto the Inters. And you've got drivers who believe they've made a mistake going onto the Inters, also drivers who believe they've made a mistake by going onto the slicks. Ghost, this is... I've scarcely seen a situation quite like this.
This is brilliant. No one can decide what the right decision is. It's fascinating. I think those who've gone, like Zinedine, PLX and Mateusz, they've gone onto the hards from the Inters. I think they've made a mistake because everyone around them was on slicks. Whereas Gippo and Lars, they I was riding on board with some drivers. It did look awful still on those slick tyres, but it's going to get better. Will it get better fast enough? That's the question. But Gippo and Lars van der Linden, maybe there's more rain coming, Daka, who knows? But they certainly seem confident in their choice. Well, maybe they're not. Maybe they're just going for a full Hail Mary strategy, but they were both in decent positions, so I don't see why they would go for that. They were still well up with the pack. It wasn't like they were losing too much time or anything. So, yeah, a strange one, but fascinating all the same. And it's brilliant news for Nico, who now leads this race. And he's got a great chance here to either take the championship lead or gain quite a few points back on Zinedine Hajjaj if this decision turns out to be correct. Well, it's certainly correct in relation to Hajjaj himself. Lars in, there we go. Okay, so Gippo's the only one who's committed to the Inters. I do doubt that, but we will see. Lars in, presumably for the mediums to the end, he'll be at the back, and I think the safety car should be in this lap, but yeah, really interesting. He's gone back onto the hards, so what was the point? Is my question. Maybe he was just giving it a go, seeing what he could do. He was towards the back anyway, so maybe that's why. But yeah, Gippo the only one heading onto the Inters, and interestingly as well, Sam van Marising the only one on mediums. They will get to the end, Daka, but they'll definitely not be in the best of shape in those last few laps. But it's whether he's built up enough of a gap by then. He's certainly going to be faster than Nico when they get going again, because I mean, we saw he was very strong in qualifying, so there's no reason to suspect he wouldn't also be strong in dry race pace. So yeah, interesting restart ahead for Sam van Marising in particular.
Yeah, that's a fascinating call. I agree on the fact that I wouldn't have expected the mediums to be the faster tyre over the course of the a nearly 20-lap finale, and certainly the rest of the grid seems to agree. So yeah, Sam van Marising, he's clearly confident in his tyre management skills. We'll see how he can hold on though, as the track, it will not be there just yet as dry as it looks, so these guys are going to have to be very wary of the grip. Spyros, interestingly, laying off quite a lot, finally does elect to close in as Nico now begins to bring them around. I wonder how much tyre temperature these guys have been able to preserve. Of course, they took those tyres straight out of the pits. They've not been able to run on them properly behind that safety car. There can't be much grip on the circuit. This is going to be very sketchy for all of these guys, and potentially it could set up Sam van Marising, who you'd expect to be in by far the best position earlier on from this leading group. But still, he sits in behind in second place as Nico continues to almost coast along. He looks to try and set this up, locking through the hairpin. Still not on the throttle just yet, waving around his teammate Sam van Marising. There's not been much team orders between them. They have gone at it up to this point in the race. Only lap 9 of the race, still so far to go. Nico has taken them right up to the final corner, straightens up the car, and away he goes as the rear end of Sam van Marising's car squirms along, but he's got a good run nevertheless, and is going to pressure Nico towards that first corner. Here they come, barreling into turn 1 for the 10th time in the race, and Sam van Marising's wide, and Mattia Mangas slips on the inside. There's cars going right off the circuit there. Zinedine Hajjaj too has dropped right down the track. The slick tyres are still so treacherous, and in this traction zone, this is where the danger is really going to be. But you saw cars just misjudging and overshooting as off the road at the back of the field as Devil manages to recover it, but is dropped considerably down the field. They get through turn 6. PLX is forced to Vele off the track, and they get locked on each other, and also spearing off the road is the other Aston Martin. And PLX gets caught on Zinedine Hajjaj as he tried to rejoin and drops down the field. And for a driver with an incredible qualifying performance, it is all fallen apart. There's absolutely no grip on the slicks. They can barely keep the car on the circuit, and some of them simply can't. It's extraordinary, and Gippo,
look at Gippo scything his way through. Yeah, wow. I sorry, my reaction earlier was for Gippo doing a triple a switchback on 3 cars through turn 6.
Look at him
and
go.
look at the grip through turn 11. It's incredible. And 12, he goes down towards the hairpin. He's surely going to be leading this race down into turn 1, I would have thought. Nico and Mattia Manga going at it. Mattia Manga down the inside into the hairpin as he gets the move done. But Gippo so much later on the brakes. He's still got so much good. Look at that. It's just sides his way past Nico. No effort whatsoever. But those slicks are going to get better, and Gippo will have to pit onto them at some point. But he does indeed lead this race heading into turn 1, surely. I mean, he's not got the straight line speed, but look at the grip on the outside that he's got. And Gippo sweeps around turns 1 and 2. It's going to be the inside for 3. And ASRT Gippo on the intermediate tyres leads the Chinese Grand Prix. But how much of a gap can he pull before those slick tyres get up to speed? I imagine he's probably only got a lap or 2 to build a gap, and that little mistake into turn 6 is not going to help him. But he's just got so much more grip on the exits as Spyros and Ruben side by side. There's a little slide from NASCAR just behind, but what a disastrous restart for EVE PLX, who was dominating this race until all of this happened, as Lars van der Linden now around the outside of Felix, and Ruben and Spyros also going to battle. Felix trying to get back past the Aston Martin, does so, and Lars has to stick behind him, and Lars losing the rear again. There's so much, it's also little grip out there. They just cannot get the cars, get that throttle pedal down as quickly as they want at all. And Gipper has a 3-second lead, but it's nowhere near enough. He needs a lot more than that, Decker, and I think those slicks are going to start coming into play pretty soon.
And the enters are going to start overheating. That's going to be the other side effect of being out there in these conditions as the track continues to improve. Still, that was an incredible showcase from Geppo, just carving his way through this PSF3 grid. Stunning stuff. He's going to try and extend this until we can see that gap start to come down, but yeah, I can't see him pulling out anywhere near the gap he needs. It was still incredible. In fact, I'm not sure, for drivers that would have had clear air straight off the restart, I'm not sure it would have been such a bad idea to hang out on the intermediates, because they would have had a much bigger lead than Geppo has up to this point. As NASCAR having a really strong race too, moving up the grid. He gets through on Spyros heading into turn 1, but yeah, the slicks will be improving. The drivers will be starting to feel their way in to the conditions, but the chaos that ensued on that restart has created some splits, and a notable one behind the two V-Carbs, who are going to go side by side once again, as Sam van Mersing, after a poor restart, tries to recapture some of that lost ground, gets through on Nico. He will try and charge back towards Mattia Manga, who you'd have to say is in the driver's seat in this race as it stands. He'd be hoping against hope that Sam van Mersing doesn't get back into that DRS, but that's going to be a tall order to try and resist the comeback of the man in third place of the moment. The gap is beginning to come close to stabilising again. Geppo's tyres will start to overheat and the slicks will start to improve. He's still got, maybe not as stabilising, he's still got plenty of grip out there at the moment. 5 seconds clear. Again, I have to say, Ghost, if those drivers up front had decided to stick it out with the intermediate strategy, they may have lost out, but I don't think it would have been by very much. These Hinters really have such a phenomenal advantage on the restart.
No, and they would have been on fresh mediums as well once they came in, and they would have been a lot more capable of getting to the end than Sam van Mersing's mediums are going to be. So, yeah, they just did not have the bottle to keep the strategy going. They came in seeing everyone around them on the slicks. Gippo, though, rolled the dice, and why not? Well, he's 5 seconds clear. He's only gained just over a second on this lap, though, so the time he's gaining is definitely slowing down. And he's going to have to come in at some point to get on those slicks. But yeah, those slick tyres coming into play now, slowly but surely, as Sam van Mersing now in DRS range of Mattia Manga for P2. It's going to be a net P1 once Gippo comes in, but Gippo's still got a chance here. Like I said, he'll be on those fresh mediums. He'll be able to gain some time. It's whether he can get back in the fight that's the question. I don't think he'll be too far behind. I mean, let's see, gap to leader. Yeah, 14 seconds down to 13th at the moment. So he'll be probably around about 10 seconds behind once he comes out the pits. And if they start battling really hard, then he's still got a chance in this one. And he's gained quite a bit of time again on this lap. So those inters still aren't bad. But like you said, Daka, quite rightly, they are going to start overheating and wearing more and more. So the advantage is going to slip away before long, but at the moment he still seems very quick out there.
Yeah, he's pulled out a little bit more than a second on this lap up to this point. I do think it is getting towards that point of stabilising, though, that gap, and eventually it will overlap and it will start to come down very quickly. Maybe this lap, maybe next lap, but I think it has to be one of those two. We'll see what Geppo's decision is on this lap. He does decide to stay out. He's going to be keeping a very close eye on that. It's hovering just over 6 seconds at the moment from Mattia Manga, who does have increasing pressure from the rear as Sam Van Marsing closes in, hanging onto that DRS. Nico is managing to go with him, and they are dropping the rest of the grid. Ruben unable to live with him. NASCAR 2 has actually been distanced from Ruben, who runs in that no man's land. The rest of the grid is still in a bit of a train, and a lot of these drivers will feel they have better pace than their current position is reflecting. So they run almost nose to tail behind FRT NASCAR, who again is in a great position in this race, relatively speaking. He's made up how many positions in the end? He's made up 3 positions from his starting position, so not tremendous, but still very strong. He does have a bit of a slide through that turn there at turn 6. It is beginning to stabilise. PLX with the fastest lap on fresh mediums, and the gap between Mattia Manga and Geppo is starting to, at the very least, hold steady, if not come down ever so slightly. So I think it probably has to be this lap for Geppo. He's going to get a tremendous advantage from the fresh mediums as well. So I think for Geppo it has to be this lap, and he can abandon this strategy for now. A great effort, but I think it may turn out to be a net loss. But we'll see what he can do with a big tyre advantage in that last stint.
Well, and a net loss in points, it's a net gain in fun for himself, I'm sure, so probably worth it in the end. But have you noticed, like, the DRS is still disabled? They still don't have it. Nico's rear wing not opening down the back straight, right behind Sam Van Marsing. So the game clearly thinks it's still pretty damp out there on circuits. Lars van der Linden loses position to NASCAR, and Spyros gets his way through as well to P7, and nothing that the Aston Martin driver could really do about that, as the two V-carbs swapping once again. Nico up to P3, there's DRS enabled, there we go, and Felix now getting his way past it. It's 4 positions lost for Lars van der Linden in 2 corners. That is not a good little section of track for him, but he's down the inside for turn 2 on Mathieusz, as the Mercedes tries to keep it there, but has to back out before turn 3, and Lars van der Linden hanging on to those last points paying positions. And look who's just behind them. Zinedine Hajjaj is still stuck down in 11th place. It's been not a good restart at all for the championship leader, but there's carnage up ahead of him as cars going sideways, but he still just can't make any progress. He can't get the throttle down, and well, we've seen him make recovery drives already this season twice, but he's looking to have to do another one here.
He's looking at the moment of losing out on the championship lead, because Nico, of course, is only 2 points behind going into this round, and on for a podium at this stage, currently running on what will be a net P2, still out there. Geppo decided to extend for another lap, and his pace is still very solid. DRS now enabled. That was probably the cue that he was looking for, but he has actually managed to hold on to that gap, and of course maybe he is thinking, this is now where you'd expect to pit onto the mediums, but I'd imagine he's making sure they have enough tyre life left at the end of the race, so he's decided to stick it out until his disadvantage becomes obvious, even more obvious than it is now, because he stays out for yet another lap. So that must be his consideration, as further back NASCAR having to defend from TGF Spyros, who can't quite find his way through at the moment. Further back we got action too, as Feely and Vessel going at it right at the rear of the train. Feely now in front of the McLaren, but you can see them now, that rear wing beginning to open, and that's where you're going to see some action. Spyros is closing on NASCAR, but not closing quickly enough. He has to remain in there for now, takes a tighter line through turn 1, but can't quite find the move. Ditto for Mathieusz there behind Felix 1. So they all come through in formation. Zinedine now up into the points, trying to make progress, but NASCAR holding everyone back, it seems, and not able to come to Ruben. And really, the podium finishers in this race, well, what the you could say the podium finishers elect in this race at the moment are stretching clear as it stands. Mattia, Nico, and Sam are 3 seconds clear now of Ruben. And the two V-Carbs, as much as they've been rather at odds throughout this race, they have to try and cooperate here. It looks like Sam Van Marising's pace beginning to drop off, but they can't waste time by fighting. But Nico, you'd have to say, looking very fast and beginning to apply some pressure to Mattia Manga, who I would fully expect in a lap's time to be leading this race. I think Geppo has to come in.
He's surely got to come in. If he stays out another lap, that's crazy. Mattia Manga 1.3 ahead of Nico. And is Sam Van Marising going to get DRS here? It was very, very close. He does just about, but he's struggling to hold on to the back of his teammate. Maybe those mediums already starting to fall away. And there's still another 12 laps to go at the end of this one. Where's Gippo? Is he coming in? Yeah, finally into the pits for the Haas driver. The race leader will be in for those slick tyres. It'll be mediums to the end, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sorry, but it's 3 wide out of the hairpin. 3 wide. Spyros, Mathieusz, and Zinedine, they've all swamped NASCAR down the straight as Spyros forces Mathieusz off the road. The Mercedes still in there. My goodness, cars all over the road there as they head down that main straight and across the lane with Spyros at the head of the straight from Mathieusz. Still, Mathieusz though will not be a happy man, and he surges to the inside of turn 2, trying to force his way through. And Zinedine Hajjaj trying to make up another possession. Spyros does have wing damage indeed on that right hand side end plate as he manages to fend off those Zinedine Hajjaj, who's got pressure from Lars from NASCAR trying to move back up, and from Feely. Lars moves to the inside of the championship leader, who outbreaks himself in a turn 6, forced out wide, tries to get good traction on the exit, but the Aston Martin does go through. NASCAR trying to reverse some of the tides. He got absolutely mugged down that main straight, and he's got big pressure from Feely and for Vessel too. He also has damage to that Alpine, which I think he picked up a lot earlier in the race actually. He recovers along from Philly and Vessel, but struggling for pace out there. But yeah, all sorts of chaos in this train, but none of them really helping themselves at the moment. Spyros now being distanced by Mathieusz, who's managed to claw his way all the way back up to Felix, who's running a superb P5. Emerging from the chaos that really unfolded behind him. He made the critical move earlier on NASCAR and watched the chaos ensue behind. They're still fighting down the straight as now it's Spyros' turn to get swamped as Zinedine Hajjaj pulls alongside Lars van der Linden. They duel under the brakes and Lars looks for the switchback instead of trying to hang it out round the outside, but Zinedine does in the end get that manoeuvre completed. He moves up into 7th place, trying to preserve that championship lead and get back on the charge. Next up is Mathieusz, then Felix 1, then Ruben. They're a long way adrift from that top 3, which surprisingly, Ghost, seems to be coming back together. Sam Van Marising actually seems to have rallied in the last couple of laps.
He absolutely has, and Philly down the inside of Spyros through turns 1 and 2, by the way. They continue to fight through 3. Philly going to try and sweep around the outside, but Spyros keeps him on the damp side of the circuit, and Philly can't get the grip he needs with NASCAR and Vessel looking for a move as well. Here comes Vessel to the inside of turn 6. There's the dive bomb. There's the move from the McLaren. He's up to P11 from that stricken Alpine. Such a shame for NASCAR because he was running so well until that damage. But look who's already caught 3 seconds to the train since he pitted. ASRT Gippo just over 4 seconds behind now as he charges down the rest of the field. Fresh mediums for him, double-digit age for the hards of all the drivers up ahead of him, and Gippo is far from out of this race. He is well in with a chance of getting up there, but he's going to have to make an awful lot of overtakes, Stacker. And, well, it's going to be difficult, but he's certainly going to have fun out there. As Sam Van Marising now round the outside of his teammate Nico down to P3 in this race, where he's got a huge opportunity to gain points on the championship leader and or take the championship lead. But Mattia Manga now opening up a 1.8 second lead. He is charging in this last lap. Maybe a mistake from Nico at some point, but Mattia Manga won't care. He is looking like the favourite to win this race at the moment after he just stayed out of trouble in that first stint.
and running along very nicely at the front. Well, that's going to be ominous for the drivers in that train. ASRT Geppo charging in a way, and I tell you what, no driver is going to be happier to see all the intense fighting in that train than the Haas drivers. Oh, Vessel there and P11 getting a bit of contact to the back of Feely there, managing to escape without much harm. By the way, Mateusz has managed to carve his way back up. He's caught Felix 1 completely, now moving up into 5th place, and he may finally try and make that junction towards the very lonely Ferrari of CPI Ruben, who's running a very calm but solid race at the moment, looking for another top 5. He got a top 5 from the Belgian Grand Prix after getting 2 penalties removed. He may look to get one on track here as he runs in P4 for the time being, but Mateusz charging him down, 1.6 seconds the gap. We'll keep an eye on that and whether he's going to get help from behind. Zinedine, now in P7, has made an awesome charge through this train now eventually. I feel like he really struggled with the kind of interslick conditions, and once it started to dry up, he's really starting to come into his own, coming up behind Felix now, but being third in the DRS train, always difficult to make the move. Felix is charging towards Mateusz. Mateusz doesn't want to give it up, but he's going to be forced to as Felix sweeps through into P5, and with that has leapfrogged his way towards the DRS of Ruben. So it's all coming together now, back in the train. It's Vessel and it's Spyros fighting it out, dueling it for the final point, spinning position on the road, and Vessel manages to get through into that 10th place now. He will charge up towards Feely, who's been a little bit distanced by the drivers out in front. Geppo with another fastest lap, and he's nearly there already. So ASRT Geppo getting himself up towards the back of FRT NASCAR, and he's carved through the field once already in this race. This one's going to be considerably more difficult, but as I said a lap ago, an ominous sign for the rest of the drivers in this field. Geppo is coming right up to them, and these guys are going to have to be wary, because Geppo is going to be a man on the move looking for some points here.
Yeah, he's going to have so much more grip on corner exits as well. But yeah, Mattia Manga looking like he is running away with this race now. 2.3 second gap. Nico well down, and Ruben well down on him. So those top 3 look like they're set to finish in order. But remember, Sam Van Marising's tyres are going to get worse as the race goes on. Still 8.5 laps left to go in this thrilling Chinese Grand Prix, as Gippo now right behind the Alpine of NASCAR. He's looking for the move already down towards turn 11. He tries to brake late. He sees the damage to that Alpine as he goes past. It's already too late for NASCAR. Gippo's through. He's got so much grip on those tyres compared to all the drivers around him, and now he's going to have DRS on Spyros down to the hairpin. I'm sure he's going to try and make a move here as well. He's using that ERS. He heading down towards that penultimate corner. The flashing red light on Spyros shows he is derating on the straight. There goes Gippo down the inside. It looks like another move for the Haas driver. He's got the grip on the exit, nearly locking tyres, but he just about gets away with it. He's up to P11, and at the moment, Daka, this is looking like an easy net gain for Gippo, because remember, when he pitted, he was quite a way down. So, you know, he thought he might as well gamble. He absolutely might as well. He's got the fastest lap. Spyros retiring in the pit lane, but Gippo, he will get that extra point as well as long as he finishes in the top 10. And, I mean, no matter who finishes where in this race, there is no doubt on which driver has had the most fun tonight.
And has provided us with the most fun as well. He's up behind Vessel. He goes for another move from a long way back into turn 6. He gets it stopped. He gets it turn 10. He gets the place. That one was a bit forceful, but I think just about okay. ASRT Geppo, my word, what a drive this is turning out to be, and showing to some of the drivers that elected to, as actually ahead. Nico losing out to Ruben. Nico's pace, I don't know why, it's completely fallen off a cliff, and now he's got pressure from Felix at the inside, the man that was looking like he was going to go into the championship lead, as well, maybe he still will, because Zinedine tried to force his way through on Mateusz with no success. But I do not know what's happened to Nico. His car is horrendously understeering as he tries to bring it under control there. I don't see any visible damage to his car. Maybe I've overlooked it to this point, but now he's got Mateusz and he's got Zinedine Hajar cruising up to him on the straight. Zinedine and Nico, the top 2 in the championship. As look at Zinedine, he's looking for another one up on the outside, and Mateusz is the top 2 from the Bahrain Grand Prix side by side. And Zinedine Hajar with a sensational move, gets to the inside and gets the place away from Evie Mateusz. Tremendous late breaking into the penultimate corner. That is why he is leading the championship, and at the moment looking set to lead the championship again after this race. Again, I have no idea what has happened to Nico's pace, but he loses another possession and now has Geppo at the inside and now the outside of turn 3. I cannot explain this fall off in pace from Nico, but nevertheless he loses out again, and he's going to completely drop like a stone throughout this entire train. Now Lars to the inside and now Vessel at turn 6. I have no explanation for this, goes Nico's pace. I don't know if it's tyres, but he is just completely falling off and has gone from the back of the grid to the front. Or from the front of the grid to the back.
I think he's an AI. I think he's in a pause menu, Daka. There you go. There you go. So Nico has had technical issues at just the wrong time. What an opportunity this race was for him to gain points in the championship, take the championship lead, but oh, it just, when it rains, it pours, and he is down, all the way down now to P11, and not even in the session. He'll struggle to get back in as host as well, so that is such a desperate disappointment for the VCARB driver, as Felix now gets his way onto the podium as a result. Ruben looking for a move as well, but Zinedine Hajjaj sweeps around the outside with the late braking from the Haas driver. His teammates making moves as well. Gippo trying to get past that Red Bull, but he's struggling to get past Philly. Philly putting on a very brave defense against this Haas, who's been scything through the field up to this point. Sets another fastest lap in his Haas, as Zinedine Hajjaj now sweeps around the outside of Felix and takes P3 in this race. I mean, who could have predicted that? He was 11th or 12th and sitting there like he was completely clueless on how to get through the grid earlier on in this race. Now he's up to 3rd. In these dry conditions, he seems so much more confident. Gippo on the inside of Philly. Philly breaks late for turn 6, but Gippo, surely with the grip, is going to get the move done, and he does. He's up to 7th place and continues his charge up the field. He might be able to get a podium from this one. There's still 5.5 laps left to go. Mateusz and Ruben side by side up ahead. They continue to go through turn 8 side by side, but Ruben finally backs out for turn 9, sensibly so, and Gippo's right back behind them again. He's got plenty of ERS too, so the Haas driver in a good position here.
Both Haas drivers have put on a show in this stint, and their race situation has improved drastically. They already led the constructors' fight going into this round, but it's looking like, after what was looking like a disaster earlier on, is going to turn into delight. Gippo looking for another move on CPI Ruben. They're going to go level down the straight, but there's no ERS for Ruben. There's nothing he can do surely to hold this back. Onto the brakes. He brakes very, very late. Gippo too holds it through the apex. Ruben is forced out wide and has to concede the place. Geppo takes another position on the track and could well, as you said, be charging after a podium. And well, you have to say, but he does have that fastest lap though denied from him. Zinedine Hajjaj with incredible pace on old worn hard tyres. He's looked after those tyres exceptionally well after that disaster on the restart. He now runs on the podium, and you can imagine his pace is going to be stretching all of the drivers behind. They're going to be pushed very hard. Felix is doing a good job of living with him for the moment, but Zinedine charging back through, and there is the question. Samban Marsing should be safe in P2, but there is that question of tyres as well as the mediums start to go off. Could Zinedine even rescue a second position? Could it even be more cars on the podium perhaps? Geppo is still carving his way through. He's up behind Mateusz. This charge from Haas has been a spectacle to watch. What a drive from the pair of them in this stint.
Absolutely, but I've found the reason why Gippo took so long to get past Philly. I believe he does have damage to that front wing. I'm not sure when he picked it up, but he's missing an end plate, so that's why he's struggling more than we expected him to be at this stage. He still should have much superior tyres to everyone around him, and it's still paying dividends, but yeah, he's not got quite as much pace as he otherwise would. He's not got a lot of ERS either as they head down the straight. Vessel getting up to P9. battling for those last points paying positions with Lars van der Linden as they head through the hairpin. There's contact as they go through and a little bit of wheel banging, but Vettel is passed into 9th place. And, well, you have to feel sorry for EVE PLX, by the way, down in last place and with no way back unless we get a very, very last gasp safety car in this race. But that is not looking likely right now as Philly and Ruben side by side through turns 1 and 2 as well. Ruben on the inside. Philly will have the inside for 3, but he's too far behind. The Ferrari is up to 7th place. And, well, Gippo now over a second ahead. He's looking for a move on Mateusz down into turn 6. He's going to go for a dive bomb here. Mateusz covers him off, but Gippo comes back to the outside. Surely can't get that move done with wing damage. And no, he has to back out of that. But it was great defending from Mateusz. He saw the move coming. He defended to the inside, forced Gippo to switch to the outside. And it didn't work in the end for the Haas driver. And he has to stay in P6. But he will still be dreaming of a podium, but he is running out of time.
He is running out of time, but yeah, Mateusz, really good car placement there, and Gippo thought about sticking it to the inside still, but changed the mind last minute, and changing that line that close to the braking zone, he was never going to be able to keep the car under control. He still has more chances further down the line though, as they round that snail curve at turn 13, getting on to the DRS midway down the straight on the ERS too for Gippo. Mateusz now is going to have to try and cover him off once again. Now he's on that overtake button. He looks safe to defend. He still covers it because he knows the danger posed by the charging Haas, but that tyre advantage will be starting to shrink as well as, of course, holding on to that front wing damage. Can he get a good run though off of this final corner? Mateusz takes a lot of curb on the inside. That's a very good run from Mateusz. I think he's going to survive one more time. He even sets the fastest lap of the race despite the fact that he's having to cover off from behind. He may try and look at for something on Enlark Felix 1 as well, who's done a superb job of keeping West Zinedine Hajjaj, and well, he's got plenty of battery too, so maybe he could look for something further down the line to get what will be a very surprising podium from the very rear of the grid. He looks towards Zinedine. Looks like the gap to Sam Van Marsing is stabilised as Gippo again looks for another one, but again Mateusz covers it off. He looks for the switchback too. Traction on the exit, onto the overtake button too, gets the slipstream up towards the outside of turn 7, but Mateusz has all bases covered at the moment. The Polish driver doing a tremendous job of holding firm, and the charge of Gippo at the moment is thwarted here in the 26th lap.
I will say Gippo's ERS usage is extremely liberal. On this circuit at the moment. He just doesn't seem to be saving it for the right times, and that is why he's stuck behind Mateusz. There's been plenty of opportunities if he'd had ERS, but he just used everything in a place where he wasn't going to make a move anyway. So I think he's getting a bit desperate in that Haas, using ERS as Lars van der Linden sweeps around the outside of Vettel for P9 through turn 12. Fantastic stuff. As Vettel has to sit behind him. Those last points paying positions, definitely battles still going on for them as Mateusz and Gippo's contact between them at the hairpin. Gippo losing out. There may be more damage to that Haas. It doesn't look like it. Still looks the same, but that front wing. But yeah, he went for it really into that hairpin, but didn't quite work out on this occasion. And it looks like Gippo is going to run out of time here for a podium unless we have some serious drama in these last couple of laps. But at the moment it just looks like Mateusz is doing enough to keep him behind. What a drive from Felix as well, who's been languishing towards the back of the grid for most of this season so far. Here he is looking for a podium. He's still got plenty of ERS left. Yes, Hajjaj does as well, but Felix is going to have the DRS, and I'm sure he's going to leave this until the final lap, where he has the best opportunity on the run to the hairpin. As long as he can get a great exit out the snail curve, he's got a great opportunity here to get a maiden podium this season.
This would be tremendous. He's always had a driver with great racecraft. That was evident even back in PSF4 last season. So how does he manage this fight with the championship leader as we head towards the final lap? Further back, Felix made a mistake out of turn 10, and he's going to lose out here as Ruben goes through, and Lars looking to the inside, but Lars ends up boxed in behind Ruben. Couldn't break his lane as he wanted to. Runs onto the curb too, nearly drops the car. Now has Vettel alongside in that McLaren, and they're going to go level down the main straight as well. Keeping an eye on the battle up front though, as Felix is trying to stay behind. He's got to be wary though, because here comes Mateusz to the inside. The spoiler in this third place battle to the inside of Felix 1, and they're going to go to battle. This is going to be so critical here. Mateusz, Felix 1, side by side into the last corner. Felix holds on to it but doesn't get a good run, and was that a saving grace for Zinedine and also for his teammate Geppo, who is back for a vengeance, charging at Mateusz, who again covers off every part of the track. He was on attack a moment ago, now on defence, as Geppo looks all the way around the outside. That sweeping wide line at the snail curve, tries to carve another one. He's got to be careful though, as he runs into the back of Mateusz and gets oversteer, and it looks like that's another attempted offensive put to bed there for the Haas driver, who I think may be settling now in that 6th place. We'll see if anything changes, but that was so risky for Felix on that last lap. He could have easily lost out, but he's managed to just about hold on. He did have to use more battery than he would have wanted to though. Is that going to pay for his chances in this 3rd place battle, in this fight against Zinedine Hajjaj? We're near the end of the race. Of course, we have not forgotten about Hinolar Mattia Manga, who is so far clear. It has been a consummate drive, and he's looking at a first race win, well clear of Sam Van Mersing. He has been the class of the field tonight, there is no doubt about that, but still, the battle goes on behind.
Felix spins at turn 12. Oh, he was trying to get the exit to have a run on Zinedine Hajjaj, but it's all gone wrong. He's down to P6. That is absolutely devastating for the Alpine driver, but we've got a cut to Mattia Manga. I don't think Mateusz is close enough. No, he's not. Gippo might be. He slings it to the inside. He's not close enough either. So Mattia Manga, what a drive from the Italian, gets his first win of the season. Sam Van Mersing, a very strong P2 from the V-Carb driver, as Zinedine Hajjaj somehow secures a podium after that race. Mateusz just about beats Gippo to the line and beats him in their battle in the last stint as well. Gippo finishes P5. What a drive from him, but I think that ERS usage and the wing damage cost him in the end a chance at a podium. Felix will be devastated with P6 in the end. It's still his best result of the season, but he knows he had a shot at P3 today. Lars van der Linden secures 7th place after all of that. Philly in P8, Vettel P9 by 7 thousandths of a second, by the way. With Ruben just a 10th behind, secures the last point. Nico's AI absolutely gutting for him. What a chance he had today, and technical issues have been his undoing, and EVE PLX was desperately hoping for a safety car at some point after that disastrous restart after the safety car, but it didn't end up coming, and the man who started this race on pole and was dominating for the early part of it finishes out of the points. He will be so disappointed, but there's a lot of that going around, I think, after that one.
Oh, without a doubt. ASRD Geppo gets driver of the day from the game, and one wouldn't argue against it. Again, as you said, wing damage maybe costing him a chance of a podium, but still a superb drive. And the only driver brave enough, really, to take that gamble to going onto the inters. And in the end, you'd have to say it worked. And, well, there'll be drivers lamenting that as well, considering, well, the situation we had just after the safety car. Mattia Manga, though, as he tends to do, makes all the right calls, takes the win from Sam Van Mersing in 2nd place. Couldn't live with Mattia Manga, but taking those softs to the end, I imagine he is still going to be delighted. Zinedine Hajjaj, just like in Brazil, fantastic recovery drive, takes position 3 ahead of EVE Mateusz. What a battling drive from him, and great defence of that 4th place too, just fending off Geppo by a margin of a 10th of a second to the lane. Geppo, a storied race to P5 ahead of Felix. What could have been? That was looking like a potential podium. In the end, has to settle for 6th ahead of Lars van der Linden. 7th, Philly in position 8 in the end, then Vessel and Ruben. Nico, again, so desperately unlucky and could well have been leading the championship after this race had he not had that disconnection. PLX, what could have been as well, just a disaster in terms of strategy in the restart. NASCAR, Spyros, Devil do not see out the race. Yeah, yet another incredible show from PSF3 here in season 39, and a race that tests the drivers' minds, I think, as much as their bodies and their skills. That was one of the most fascinating, one of my favourite parts of that race was probably the safety car period. Seeing drivers commit to the inters and then change their minds, and then drivers who came in for slicks going on to the inters That was a spectacle, and again, I know we've mentioned him a lot tonight, but massive props to Geppo for actually seeing that strategy through and getting a great result out of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. If it weren't for the damage, I think he would have been nailed on for P3 that race. He was flying through the field on those fresh mediums. When he came out 7.5 seconds behind, I thought, well, it's going to take him a little while to catch back up. But he was right on the back of them within 3 laps. And then it was just overtake after overtake after overtake, and then finally came to a stop once he received that damage. And then I think the ERS usage in the end, probably maybe even more so than the wing damage, was his downfall. He was just using so much ERS at places where he was never going to be able to make moves. I think maybe overconfidence in the grip of his tires, maybe just desperation as the laps tick down. I'm not sure, but yeah, he'll still be very, very happy, and so he should be. He's definitely my driver of the day. I don't know about you, Taka, but what a day for Haas. Like you said earlier, looked like a total disaster for them earlier on, and it's turned out to be P3 and P5. I mean, you can't turn your nose up at that. And Zinedine Hajjaj keeping the Drivers' Championship lead too. So it's overall been a great day for the white cars, and well, Gippo will be disappointed to not get the podium, but still a great drive. And like I said earlier, he will have definitely had the most fun today of all the drivers. So many overtakes that he had to make, and just throughout pretty much the entire race after the safety car, he had much better grip than everyone around him, which is always enjoyable conditions to race in. So yeah, massive props to him. The only one to stick to it. Remember, Lars van der Linden came into the pits as well. He wasn't confident. He went onto the Inters just like Gippo and decided, nah, I'm not going to do that. And where's he finished? Well, he did well to finish P7, to be fair, in the end, with all that battling going on. But even so, maybe he could have been with Gippo. Who knows?
Who knows? And yeah, just to mention, PLX, Zinedine Hajjaj, EV Mathieusz, the 3 drivers who initially decided to come in onto the intermediate straight away as soon as the safety car came out. I mean, EV PLX, oh my goodness. How is this going to feel, I wonder, because you'd think that was potentially a race win waiting to happen. If he decided to stick it out onto the intermediates, that drive could have went so much differently. There's so many things to discuss after that race, but of course we need to have a mention for the drive too of our race winner, and in dominant fashion, Enel Mattia Manga. I was saying earlier on in the stream how the opening couple of rounds he did get a podium in Brazil, granted, but that also could have easily been a win that hadn't quite gone the way that he would have wanted it to. But that was a superb drive, and it cannot be underestimated too how well he handled those slicks on the drying track. Not quite dry when the Inters were still faster, because we saw cars having big oversteer moments, sliding off the road, spinning. He just kept it so calm, so clean, and in the end was undeniably just clear of the field when he eventually got going in that second stint. It was just a masterful performance.
It really, really was, yeah. So impressive from start to finish. Kept it out of trouble despite being in the mid-pack with all those moves going on in the early part of the race. As everyone got used to the Inters, he held position and wasn't making any moves, but also wasn't getting involved in anything. So he did very, very well. And then when his opportunity came, he pounced flawlessly. Didn't really see him make much of a mistake at all for the whole rest of the race once he got into the lead, and the V-Carbs just couldn't live with him in the end. I know Nico had his unfortunate issue, but Mattia Manga looked extremely strong from start to finish, and a very well-deserved victory. He's going to find himself as well only 11 points adrift of Zinedine Hajjaj going into next week's round 5. So with 5 rounds to go. He's still looking in a decent spot, Mattia Manga, after, like you said, maybe a disappointing start to the season. He is not in a bad place at all, and even Nico, he's only going to be 12 points behind too. So still plenty of action to come this season, and the championships still very much on. But Zinedine Hajjaj will be wondering how on earth he got away with that, I think.
Yeah, of course, even if, again, huge commiserations to OVR Nico, because that was looking like probably a P2 if that didn't happen with that disconnection. So hugely disappointing, but as you said, he is still very much in the game, looking forward, and he does have 5 rounds to make it up. I think Zenedine had managed to cut his losses anyway, so it would have been razor thin at the top of the standings if it wasn't for that. But Nico still has plenty of rounds to fight back, and of course we have a new face potentially thrust into that Drivers' Championship battle in Mattia Manga. Well, that is round 4 in the books. Looking forward to round 5, and Ghost, I can't lie, I'm a little bit worried. It is the Austrian Grand Prix next up, and with the aggression levels of this grid, the main that goes wild as to, well, what on earth this grid could produce at a track where overtaking opportunities for wheel-to-wheel racing are at a sky-high level at that track.
I think we may need to bring 2 large glasses of water each to the commentary box next week, because it is going to be fireworks. I'm looking forward to it though. I think it's going to be great. But yeah, it is going to be it's going to be difficult for the drivers with so much hunger out there on the grid this season, on every single lap. So yeah, it's certainly going to be difficult to follow all the action, I think, but we will do our absolute best as always. But yeah, I mean, if we have changeable conditions as well, like today, then who knows what could happen. In Austria, you see it all the time. So yeah, a lot of rain this season, hasn't there?
Yeah.
So I wonder how much more we'll get. But I mean, I'm not complaining.
Yes, I'm not complaining for the entertainment side of it, but yeah, hopefully the drivers are able to somewhat stay out of each other's way at least, and we can get some good clean racing out there. That is of course what we love to see in PSGL, but that is to come next time out in this enthralling PSF3 Championship, still very much alive. Both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships have swung one way tonight, but far from over. There is still so much to look forward to in the future rounds. But yeah, remarkably, as I said at the start of this stream, we are nearly halfway through the season. 5 rounds to go. What on earth could those final rounds produce? But that is all to come. But you better be watching next week when we take on the Red Bull Ring for the Austrian Grand Prix. We will see you then. But just a final thank you to PSGL. Thank you to GT Omega for sponsoring PSGL. Thank you to all the drivers for putting on a great show. Thank you to all of you for watching, and of course thank you to Ghost for being alongside me. It is always a pleasure sharing the box with you. Well, I think that's going to bring things to an end for tonight. So for myself and Ghost, we will anticipate strongly that next race in Austria, but it is goodbye for now, and until next time, we'll see you later.